They said she'd never wake up. Doctors, experts, friends, family, all had slowly begun to accept that Elara Whitmore, the once vibrant heiress to a global fashion empire, was now nothing more than a breathing shadow trapped in a sterile hospital room. For 7 years, her body lay still, perfectly preserved in an expensive private suite, while the world outside moved on without her. Some forgot her. Others remembered her only through headlines of the past: the yacht accident, the coma, the lawsuits, the legacy frozen in time. But amid all the silence, there was one soul who never let go, one who whispered her name every morning as if calling it could summon her back. Before we continue with this heart-tugging journey, please take a moment to like this video, leave a thoughtful comment, share with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel, Rapple of Hope, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and miracles hidden in the quiet places. Dr. Adrian Hale was not supposed to be in that hospital the night Elara was wheeled in, unconscious, soaked in salt water, with her skull fractured and her vitals crashing. He was only a third-year resident at the time, barely noticed by senior physicians. But he had been walking by when her gurney passed. Something about her face, not just her beauty, but the quiet strength in her broken stillness, stopped him cold. Over time, when even her closest family members began visiting less, it was Adrian who stayed. First out of curiosity, then out of duty, and eventually, out of something deeper. He read her poetry. He adjusted her music playlist to her favorite vintage jazz. He memorized every line of her medical chart, researched rare cases, and kept suggesting treatments others dismissed as futile. He did not know if she could hear him. He only knew that not trying felt like betrayal. Elara's coma had become a cage not just for her, but for everyone tied to her name. Her father, consumed by guilt for pressuring her into that trip. Her fiancé, who eventually moved on, publicly at least. Her fashion brand, slowly unraveling under boardroom vultures. But none of that mattered to Adrian. She was not her legacy to him. She was a soul suspended, deserving of presence and care, even if her eyes never opened again. But then, on a rainy Tuesday morning 7 years later, everything changed. It began with a twitch of her finger, so faint the nurse might have missed it if not for the way Adrian had trained the staff to check every detail. By evening, her eyelids fluttered. By dawn, her chest heaved a shaky breath on her own. And when Adrian whispered, "Elara, it's okay. You're safe," her lips trembled, just slightly, but enough for the room to freeze in disbelief. The weeks that followed were a blur of cautious joy and medical marvels. Elara's brain scans showed inexplicable recovery. Muscle therapy began. Her speech slowly returned, laced with confusion and fragmented memories. Her body ached from years of stillness, and her mind was fogged with trauma. She couldn't remember the accident, not fully. But she remembered music. She remembered colors. She remembered her mother's laugh. And gradually, she remembered the man who kept visiting her bedside, his voice, steady and warm, every single day. Adrian never expected gratitude. But what he received was something else entirely. Elara's recovery was front-page news. Media camps swarmed the hospital, investors clawed back to court her attention, and long-lost friends reappeared with flowers and smiles. But through the noise, Elara gravitated only toward Adrian. She clung to his words. Laughed at his terrible puns. Cried in his presence when the nightmares came back. In the sterile white walls of the recovery wing, something delicate bloomed, something no one dared name. But healing is never linear. As Elara regained her memory, the pressure of returning to her former life weighed heavy. Board meetings, inheritance, the press, all demanded the woman she once was. But she was no longer that version. She had died in a sense and been reborn, wiser, quieter, and haunted. Fame now felt suffocating. Wealth felt hollow. The only place she felt grounded was beside Adrian, under the soft yellow light of the hospital garden, where they would talk about nothing and everything. One evening, after a rough session of physical therapy, Elara broke down. Everyone wants me to go back to who I was. But she died out there on that ocean. I don't know how to be her anymore. Adrian simply held her hand and replied, then be who you are now. And I'll stand beside you, however long it takes. In the months that followed, Elara made the boldest decision of her life. She stepped down from her company. Sold her luxury estate. Donated large portions of her fortune to brain trauma research and patient care. And she began to write again, something she hadn't done since college. Not for headlines, but for healing. Her story, raw and unfiltered, went viral not because of fame, but because of honesty. And through it all, Adrian remained, not as a doctor now, but as a companion. Their connection had deepened into something undeniable. But both feared naming it aloud, haunted by the ethics, the scrutiny, and the uncertainty of fragile new beginnings. Still, in quiet moments, their eyes would meet, and something would flicker between them like a candle protected from the wind. Then, on the anniversary of the day she woke, Elara surprised Adrian with a single handwritten note, "You waited 7 years for me to wake up. I've waited my whole life to feel safe with someone. If you're still willing. I'm here now." He didn't need to reply with words. His tears said enough. They moved to a coastal town, ironic, perhaps, given the sea once stole everything from her. But there, they rebuilt something new, a small clinic focused on long-term coma care, funded by Elara's trust. Together, they became symbols of persistence, not fairy tales, but real, flawed people who chose each other day by day. And sometimes, at sunset, Elara would lean her head on Adrian's shoulder and whisper, "You brought me back." To which he'd softly reply, "No. You found your own way. I just refuse to stop looking for the light." If this story touched your heart, even just a little, please let us know in the comments below. Hit the like button, share this with someone who needs hope today, and don't forget to subscribe to Rapple of Hope. Stories like these aren't just fiction, they remind us that somewhere out there, someone is still holding on, still believing, still waiting for a miracle. Because sometimes, even after the longest sleep, love is the first thing we wake up to.